was going to kick off the session talking about yesterday, but Linda already did a great job with summarizing the talks, so I'm not going to try to repeat that. But what I will start off with is what this event has meant to me, kind of what's been most impressive for me. And for me, I think it was definitely the focus groups for those that were here on Tuesday. I've been to plenty of APM events over my time at Verdantix and been part of lots of focus groups. And it's always been clear to me that in a lot of these discussions that customers are very focused on one thing, what's going to help their business. It's not as collaborative as you'd want it to be. It's not as open as some of the discussions needs to be. But being in the ones with GE this week has been really eye-opening. It's been great to see how all of you guys have just been trying to support the whole company, the whole market, trying to support that growth. Special shout out to Vipin's Integrity Focus Group as well. I don't think I've been in such an engaged one in a long time. So I think it's kudos to all of you guys for really trying to push this market past just your own operational benefits, but towards the whole benefit of the industry. So well done to all of you. But yeah, with that, let's get into today's presentation. I've got the great honor to be talking about APM and where it overlaps with decarbonization. But before getting into that, quick introduction into myself and my company, Verdantix. So Verdantix, we are an independent research and advisory firm. Really, our focus as a business is around trying to understand where technologies can help different markets. We're looking to streamline decision-making, de-risk investment decisions, and accelerate digital strategies. So basically working with software vendors and buyers of software to help shape the kind of overall market. As a company, we've got kind of three different arms of a business. So first and foremost is our research. This is where we spend most of our time collecting data, talking to yourselves, the vendors in the market, really trying to understand what's causing different challenges, where's the market going, how can you develop your strategies, how can you accelerate what you want to do. We take that research and apply our kind of strategic insights into a strategy consulting arm within the advisor team, and also try to package it into kind of easy, accessible data points for our clients to use. As part of that ongoing research, we've got something we call the Industrial Transformation Team, and this is where I sit in the company. This team really focuses on looking how technology can support asset-intensive industries. So industries like the oil and gas, the manufacturing, the utilities industries, trying to talk to the operations, engineers, maintenance professions around what is going on in their business today and how can we accelerate their strategies and drive best practices across all these industries. Within this team, we've got our asset management arm, if you want to call it, and this is where I kind of sit. So I lead a lot of our research into asset management solutions as part of that APM. As a company, we've been looking at APM for over 10 years. We've done 3 key benchmarking reports in this space over the last 5 years. You can see some pictures at the bottom there. You can see how busy the industry's got over the last 5 years. I'm sure all of you guys know this already as well. But as part of that research, we've done these 3 benchmarking reports, probably spoken to over 1,000 different buyers in this space, written nearly 100 reports on this, and spoke to hundreds of vendors as well. But hopefully that gives you a very brief overview of kind of who Verdantix are and our expertise in APM. So really the focus of the presentation today, I'm going to talk you through a bit about the decarbonization landscape itself, what we're seeing in the market. Appreciate a lot of this might be known to all of you guys because you are living and breathing it every day, so bear with me a little bit. Then going to dive into the APM side, think about where APM and decarbonization actually cross, and then go a bit more forward-looking, what we're going to see going forward over the coming years. Oh, and hopefully have time to a Q&A at the end. If not, you can always catch me afterwards. But to start things off, I mean, it's an obvious statement, but decarbonization is a top priority in the market right now. We've seen almost every single firm, whether you're in oil and gas, in manufacturing, utilities, pharmaceutical, you name it, whatever industry you are, we've seen all of them come out and make these ambitious targets to reach net zero. Whether that's AstraZeneca looking to reduce carbon emissions by 98% by 2026, or ADNOC with their 25% reduction of CO2 emissions by 2030. But everyone is very actively looking at decreasing their emissions. The reason for that is kind of twofold. One is regulations and one is brand reputation. Customers, buyers, users are very aware of the impact of greenhouse gases in the industry today and actively looking to work with providers that are supporting a greener future. The other side is the governmental regulations. We're seeing governments come out all the time talking about how they want to drive a kind of a net zero future. We've seen things like the Paris Agreement, the EU Fit for 55, the US Inflation Act, all these kind of guidelines coming out that are really driving investment into net zero activities. On the more corporate side, we've seen kind of your carbon reporting standards coming out. While still voluntary, things like the SEC, the CSRD, and others are making firms rethink what decarbonisation means to their business. It's causing firms to think about an actual investment strategy, making firms think about putting decarbonisation at the top of their strategies for the year ahead. So for those who don't know who Verdantix are, or have not worked with us in the past, one thing to know is that we love to do surveys. So earlier this year, we went out and interviewed over 300 operations and maintenance professions to really understand what their technology budgets, priorities, interests, challenges, investment decisions were going to be for the year ahead. And we asked them about their decarbonisation interests. What we saw was that corporate decarbonisation targets was the top driver for plant digitization in the year ahead. And in the same lines, over 50% of firms were looking to invest in decarbonisation activities in 2025. Again, really driving that emphasis that decarbonisation was a top priority for the year. But what does this all mean for you guys? I mean, this is quite high level, C-level driven initiatives, themes, strategies. How is that impacting what's happening day to day in the operations and maintenance fields? Well, really what it's doing is making us rethink the definition of our roles. Take the typical process optimization activities. It used to be very much focused on optimizing operations, looking at increasing bottom line revenues, trying to increase the profitability of your activities. That's now shifting to have that environmental lens on it. You're thinking about how can I optimize processes to drive energy efficiency, reduce waste? How can I bring in renewable energies as an input to my business? Similar idea in resource management. It's no longer just optimizing my personnel, my labor, my workforce, my materials in terms of minimizing the cost. It's about minimizing the environmental impact as well. It's about driving a more net zero culture within the business. In maintenance upkeep, it's the same logic. It's not just about trying to increase the uptime of your assets and keeping it running as long as possible. It's also around, is it worth maybe replacing an asset because it's more environmentally friendly rather than maintaining it? It's about keeping more efficient, environmentally friendly workplace culture and safety. And it all goes back to this idea of continuous improvement, right? Continuous improvement's a big thing. Everyone always looks to be more profitable, get those bottom line revenues up, but it's also now looking at how can we continuously drive to reduce emissions and waste as well. So how can you achieve decarbonisation in your operations? At Verdantix, we've come up with what we call 3 levers, 3 segments, three types of technologies, however you want to define it. But really what we see is you've got these kind of clean energy transition tools that let you move from a higher to a lower carbon source. You've got advanced decarbonisation tools. These are kind of the ones that are going to completely reduce or eliminate carbon from your processes. Or your efficiency improvement tools. So your ones that are more kind of software focused, looking at optimizing your processes, operations, etc. When you've got these type of technologies in the market, and you're thinking about, I want to reach net zero by 2030, 2050, whenever it's going to be, you start thinking about how am I going to implement these tools? What am I going to implement? Which one should I be using? What's the best strategy for me? To come up with that strategy, you already think about what the first steps are going to be. I think there's 2 things you need to think about. 1, what is the actual value that I'm going to get as a business from using these tools? And 2, what is the overall market saying? What's that geopolitical landscape looking like that might impact my decisions and investments? So starting with that second point, if we take things like coal to biomass, carbon capture, green hydrogen, all these clean energy, advanced decarbonization technologies, they're significant investments, often multi-million, billion-dollar investments in new processes, new applications that are going to take 3-5 years or so to come into value. They're significant changes to what you're doing today. And often the reason why we're seeing firms put that investment in is because there's a governmental push behind it. There's policies, regulations, incentives, fines, you name it, but something's coming in that's causing firms to think about, okay, we really need to change what we're doing today by investing in one of these significant capital expenditure processes. The issue with it today is we're not seeing that government push as much as we used to. Go back 3, 4, 5 years, there was a lot of talk about investing in carbon capture. But over the last 18 months, we've seen governments move the other way. The UK, for example, came out a few years ago and said there'd be no petrol and diesel cars on the roads by 2030. It was 2025, actually, in fact, at first, then 2030, and now it's been pushed back indefinitely. If that's not a push from the government anymore, why are firms going to look to electrify their fleets? Why is the automotive industry not going to put everything in electrification if they get allowed to still sell petrol and diesel cars? Take the US, for example. Oil and gas production is at an all-time high right now. The Trump administration has said they're going to actively look at exploring new fields. If the government is putting money in investing in traditional oil and gas fossil fuel activities, is the incentive there to be investing in new decarbonization initiatives right now? Probably not. Maybe it's worth waiting a bit longer, waiting to see when things need to happen. If we look at it from another point of view, from the day-to-day kind of business level, we said ambitious targets, 2030, 2050, want to reach net zero, but how do we do it? We've already seen a lot of firms come out and say 2025 is our target, but we're backtracking on this now because we just don't know what we're doing. There's so much uncertainty in the market. What's the best solution to go by? There's no best practice or single solution that's going to tell you this is how you reach net zero. As such, what we're seeing at Verdantix now is there's a lot of uncertainty. One side, the governments are not really pushing it. The other side, no one's really aware of what's the best set of solutions that are going to make you get to net zero. And that, for us, is where efficiency improvement technologies really enter the market. We're telling firms we're working with, we're telling them that they need to make actionable, controllable, tangible steps that are going to drive them towards a decarbonized future. We're not saying you're going to reach a certain goal, but it's more around what can you do today that's going to help you to make the next step towards your decarbonization goals. And that's where efficiency improvement comes in. Technology that's going to change your day-to-day operations. It's not going to be a drastic multi-million-dollar investment, but it's just going to optimize what you're doing today to help you start reducing those net zero emissions. We've seen bodies like the IEA come out and say, look, with software that's available in the market today, you can reach 20 to 50% of your net zero emission reduction targets by 2030. That's crazy. Maybe about a third of what you want to do can be achieved already just by using software that's available in the market. That's not even thinking about kind of the benefits of tools like AI and how that's going to revolutionize the software market in the coming years. So there's a lot that can be done with just efficiency improvement tools right now. But I guess the question then becomes, what tools, right? So at Verdantix, what we did when we did our survey is ask firms, what technologies are most important to you guys for net zero? We saw predictive maintenance and production optimization as being the two top tools for supporting net zero goals. And unsurprisingly, when we asked them about investment for 2025, APM came up as one of the top softwares for supporting for supporting plant investments. And that's not a surprise, right? APM tools, you guys all know this. It's a solution that can be used to predict failures, understand what's happening today, optimize your maintenance, optimize your operations, increase your plant efficiencies, but in turn drive environmental gains. And that's kind of where APM enters this decarbonization space. It's no longer just a tool that maintenance folks are using to understand the condition of your assets and start predicting failures. It's very much evolved. It's a solution that's bringing together maintenance, integrity, reliability, investment, environmental emissions, you name it, all the different kind of subcomponents of operations and maintenance nowadays into one room, trying to help drive safer, more efficient, more reliable, and more environmentally optimized processes. So let's dive a little bit more into APM now. I'm not going to spend too much on this slide because I think everyone here knows what APM does. We've spoken about it a lot over the last 2 days. But at high level, you've got your asset health capabilities, really looking at supporting the condition of assets. You've got your reliability, integrity, performance side, really focused on predicting what's going to happen in the future, optimizing inspections, maintenance plans, etc. You've got your life cycle management capabilities, really looking at taking all that data to drive more data-driven investment decisions. And then the environmental side, thinking about emissions management, leak management, energy management, etc. And then just double-clicking into that environmental side. At Verdantix, we very much see there's probably 4 key areas where APM software is supporting that decarbonization agenda. By no means are these the only 4 areas, but it's really kind of where we see the key benefits coming. Starting at the bottom left, first and foremost, predictive maintenance, the bread and butter of APM software, right? Predicting failures, understanding what's going to happen in the future. If we can predict when a failure is going to happen, especially if failure has got a high emission impact on your business, that's considerable savings you're making already towards your energy consumption, right? You're avoiding significant emissions, flaring, leaks, whatever it may be, but stopping those inefficiencies is hugely valuable and something quite tangible that you can quantify. Efficiency optimization. This is now thinking about your overall plant and your process. We all know as a plant or process that's running, over time it wears away. You get corrosion, you get general wear and tear. This reduces the efficiencies of your plant, causes more energy consumption. You need more power to run your pumps, etc. The beauty of an APM tool, as you all know, you can start monitoring that inefficiencies, that reduction in performance, and optimize your maintenance and investment schedules to make sure that you're always running at a peak efficiency that's going to support more efficiency from an environmental point of view. Reduce flaring, reduce leaks, reduce the impact of corrosion. Similarly, from the process and resource optimization point of view, you can optimize your maintenance schedules. You can bring data from all sorts of parts of the business to enable the minimized of kind of material loss, production losses, and any sort of environmental impact. But all of that is very much around kind of the day-to-day APM usage, right? Using an APM tool to optimize your performance. The other side is the renewable asset optimization. As we move to a more decarbonized future, what we're seeing is that more and more firms are investing in renewable assets, wind, solar, hydro. Whether that's investing in on-site generation or you've got new firms coming in that are looking purely on renewable energy production. But these assets are twofold. One, they're new assets. There isn't a lot of best practices out there for how to operate and maintain them. And 2, they're in remote locations, often quite dispersed geographically. It's quite hard to maintain them. Where an APM tool really supports here is bringing in that manufacturing data, that real-time insight to drive actual best practices for how to maintain and operate these solutions, but then also help optimize those maintenance schedules and understanding when it comes to thinking about when to maintain and intervene on these assets. APM software isn't stagnant though. We've all seen it evolve over the last few years. As it changes, as it gets more and more powerful as a solution, we're going to see more and more use cases come up. AI is obviously the big area where APM is changing right now. We're seeing it revolutionize how the software works, and it's going to add more and more benefits towards that environmental piece. So really kind of starting off with 4 key benefits that AI brings to APM. The data management side. Able to clean, contextualize, produce higher quality data at a much quicker rate and a much timely manner. You've got better data at the palm of your hands that's only going to drive more robust insights and actions. It's also going to reduce the impact of anomalies, false positives, any sort of kind of data inconsistencies are going to be Obviously not eliminated, but going to be reduced, and that's just going to help drive that overall impact from an environment point of view. The machine learning models you get within AI tools nowadays, they're extremely powerful. They're going to support the predictive maintenance and production optimization capabilities in an APM tool. Having stronger, more insightful failure predictions is only going to help drive more insightful actions. If you can predict failures in advance, even further in advance because of these more powerful tools, you're going to only be able to minimize the environmental impact further. Machine vision models, we saw over the last 2 days the potential the partnerships with Antibiotics and the power of those robots that are coming in play. It's a similar idea here. If you can avoid having to send people out to sites, especially talking about renewable assets, for example, when you've got distributed assets and locations, you can optimize the resources, the efficiency, you gain insights in a much timelier manner, you can make actions a lot quicker. All of this then supports that reasoning side of things. If you've got access to data, quicker data, higher quality data, and you understand your data better, you're making actions quicker. For the second you know you've got a failure to when you intervene on it, all of that time is inefficiencies. So if you're immediately acting on what's happening, you're only going to further impact your environmental capabilities. The other thing to remember is AI is evolving as well. Over the last year or so, we've seen LLMs and generative AI take flight even further and make AI even more interesting to users. Not sure how much I agree with this survey point, but what we're seeing now is 75% of firms are either actively looking to invest or have invested in generative AI solutions. All right? I mean, we all know the data impact that might have and the kind of immaturity of the market and how much more people don't really understand about generative AI already. But the fact that 75% are actively looking, I think, just shows how important AI is to the world today and how much it's actually going to revolutionize what we do over the coming years. And with generative AI tools, from an APM point of view, what it's going to allow you to do is bring in unstructured data to the decision-making matrix, easily contextualize all of that P&ID data, emails, pictures, whatever it may be, but it further enhance your ability to make decisions. It's also going to add kind of Copilot, ChatGPT style interfaces, allowing any person, whether they're a subject matter expert or a fresh graduate out of uni, to interact with the solution, understand why a failure is happening, what's causing the failure, what the rectifying actions need to be to really help drive next steps in the business. Ultimately thinking about, again, how can we use this information to drive more decarbonization-related initiatives? So that's kind of where we are in the market now, right? Decarbonization, big importance. Everyone wants to reduce their emissions, a bit of uncertainty about how to do it, but APM tools are there. APM tools are there to optimize your day-to-day maintenance, your day-to-day operations, but having that lens of thinking about why we do that. It'll also support the inefficiencies on energy management, help drive a more greener future. But what are we going to see going forward? Where's the market going to evolve? Let's start with kind of this slide here. It's a 4-point overview of where we see the market going. Really, AI and Gen AI is going to continue to evolve, right? We're going to see it continue to enhance the applications of APM, to drive further knowledge management, further analytics, further robust capabilities. We're going to see integrations really change the market a bit as well. Data management obviously is a big point, but within that integrations, we're going to see more and more data brought into the APM environment, into that decision-making framework to help drive decisions on ESG, carbon reporting, emissions management, etc. We're going to see the functionality of APM tools change. Historically, if we discussed earlier, predictive maintenance, condition monitoring was what it was. We're seeing it evolve into safety, risk management, reliabilities, environmentals. But that will continue. We'll see more and more capabilities being offered and more use cases within the APM environment. And as all of that happens, you get that priority of decarbonization just increasing. We know it's important, but it will get further and further embedded into asset management as you start thinking about decarbonization as part of your strategic priorities in your asset management framework. So let's just dive into each of those in a bit more detail. Starting with AI. we've touched on generative AI from an APM point of view, but that's not all it does, right? Generative AI has so many revolutionary capabilities, from automating maintenance workflows, admin tasks, helping get data into your tools a lot easier, 3D visualizations, having that low-code chatbot interface, and even facilitating more kind of voice recognition type activities to make it hands-free for technicians. All these capabilities, you can quickly start thinking about how that's going to apply to the APM landscape, right? All these capabilities are going to make APM more accessible, more flexible, more scalable, more powerful for users. But these are generic applications, right? How do we know these applications, these uses of AI are going to have a tangible impact on actual APM? When we asked our firms to rank what the key use cases of AI they saw were, we saw that inefficiencies in in the performance of plant managers and supervisors, and failure prediction were the top 2 use cases that people were looking to use AI for. So let's just think of those 2 use cases in a different way. Predict what's going to happen in the future and enhance the actions of operations and technicians to essentially answer those failure predictions. Effectively an APM tool, right? Predict the future, act on the future. So as firms start thinking about AI in terms of improving these use cases, naturally APM software will be involved in this discussion. You'd be thinking about how APM software will be in that decision space, how APM software is going to be evolving, actually look to answer these use cases. And in the same light, would then start moving into the decarbonization side, looking to reduce carbon emissions even further through these aspects. From an integration point of view, we already see APM acting as a bit of a hub, right? Data comes in from various different sources, historians, SCADAs, IoT sensors, P&IDs, whatever it may be. It comes into this kind of data management layer. Obviously not all tools have this kind of data lake specifically, but it's got capabilities to make it accessible to frontline workers, C-suite, whoever needs access to the data can get it through the APM platform, allowing you to do maintenance optimizations, integrity managements, failure predictions, performance optimizations, etc. What we're going to see in the coming years is more data being brought into the APM landscape. Regulatory data, weather data, emission data, standards, all this will be brought into that kind of data space to help make decisions. It will optimize what you're doing today. So weather data might impact maintenance plans. You know a storm's coming. How does that impact what I need to be doing tomorrow? But also, it will start allowing you to do a kind of bottom-up approach towards thinking about carbon reporting, emissions management. You've got all this data around standards coming in. You've got the operational asset data historically already in the APM tool. There's nothing stopping you thinking about that more carbon reporting side of things or emissions management side. Yes, we've discussed how energy management is really important to the market. Decarbonization is a top priority. Everyone wants to look to invest in it. But really important to remember, it's probably still a secondary benefit. There's uncertainties, lack of government incentives right now. What it's saying is your focus still needs to be on increasing your revenues, increasing production, driven by effectively increasing your bottom line revenues. Your third point of priority is probably that decarbonization side. It goes back to this point we've been talking the whole time, right? So if I can optimize my operations, my maintenance, my activities, but have a secondary impact on my emissions, that's going to have huge value for me. And that's where APM sits back into this again. As more firms turn to APM to support their bottom line revenues, their operations and maintenance improvements, we're going to see that more firms then start thinking about it from a secondary point of view. How can I also gain emissions benefits from using an APM tool? We said 60% of the market is looking to invest in an APM tool in 2025. With that, and that we know there's growing interest in decarbonization, it's quite logical to expect more and more investment from an APM side into environment. We also did a study last year. It's called our Green Quadrant methodology, this picture you see here. We looked at significant market players in the APM space to understand their software capabilities, market depth, and perception across the market. Every vendor you see here answered a 170-point questionnaire, provided us a 2.5-hour demo, and let's interview some of their customers. We took all that data to understand what was important for buyers of APM software, what were the key functionalities, the key needs of the software, and how different vendors matched up to that. GE Vernova came out as a market leader in our study. The firm scored perfect scores, as high as you possibly could, for things around condition monitoring, reliability, integrity. We've seen over the last 2 days the power of the health, the strategy, the integrity parts of the business already. But what was really great to see was how the firm is setting the pace and innovating so highly on the environmental side. As a business, GE Vernova is now offering out-of-the-box libraries for energy efficiency within its APM tools. We've seen the impact of Sirius over the last 2 days, allowing you to do things around scope 1, 2, 3 data collection, emissions management. We've even seen ML models for optimizing CO2 emissions. I think this puts GE in quite a significant position in the market right now. While not everyone is ready to advance those use cases, it's where the market's moving. We're seeing a lot of discussions from buyers of software around, we want to get our data in place today. We want to do the reliability and integrity sides, but that environmental aspect is what we're looking for the future of our business. We're looking at partners that are growing in the direction we're growing. GE in this position right now really sets themselves above the rest a bit in terms of that forward-looking future innovation from an environmental point of view. And then the last one, the decarbonization side. I mentioned to you earlier, decarbonization is going to get more and more important. We're going to see it becoming embedded into the asset management framework. But why do we think that? How do we think that? To explain this, what I thought we would do is take a little trip down memory lane through our green quadrants, what we've seen each year. 2020 was the first asset performance management green quadrant we ran. You'd see not many vendors on that space, but also quite interestingly, what we saw was that less than half the people we spoke to, buyers of software at that time, were saying environmental risk mitigation was not really a priority for them, or was a priority, but less than 50 was saying it was a priority. So not a big focus on that environmental side. Similarly, not seeing much from the vendor side in terms of actually offering capabilities to support it. 2022, bit of a shift. We're now seeing about 80% of firms are thinking we need to be able to record our emissions data. We're not sure what we're going to do with it yet, but we need a capability just to say, we need to know what's going on. Spurred on with all the regulations that came in a few years ago, the idea of carbon reporting, et cetera, but there's a collective interest of knowing what emissions, what carbon data is going through our processes. We started seeing APM vendors that offering capabilities for this as well, monitoring leaks, watching out for seeps in plants, watching how to look at scope 1 emissions. 2024, or even 2025, and a lot of the data we've shown you today, decarbonization has become a top priority. Over 2/3 of firms are investing in it actively right now. We're seeing majority of vendors in our quadrant right now offering environmental performance capabilities. We're seeing AI come into play now. AI looking not just to improve the robustness of predictive maintenance, the analytics involved, but also trying to drive emissions and carbon reductions. So in the space of 4-5 years or so, we've gone from less than 50% of the market thinking about environmental performance in the context of APM to now majority of the market looking at it, majority of vendors now trying to offer capability to support it. That's a huge pace of change, right? In 5 years, the whole mindset's shifted, and there's no reason why we wouldn't think otherwise. Definitely going to see that continuing. So as we look into, I put 2026 here because that's when the next green quadrant will be, but moving into the future, very much seeing emissions reductions growing in importance. Decarbonization will be very much embedded into the whole asset management landscape. We'll see AI to continue to grow, generative AI capabilities, agentic solutions. This all come in that will help further drive emissions and carbon reductions. And I think what we'll see is, if not all, at least 80% of firms will start offering some sort of out-of-the-box capabilities to support decarbonization activities. Really making decarbonization one of the forefront strategic initiatives for firms. So just going to wrap it up now. Coming back to this slide, Decarbonization and APM. Like we said at the start, it's a growing area, growing importance. More and more activities are happening in this space. Right now, the focus is very much on understanding what you can do today to help drive environmental and energy efficiencies. As we look to grow the business, as we look to grow the market, things like AI, more integrations, more functionality within the platform, and more focus on decarbonization is going to further drive that interest within APM and force firms to start thinking about APM as not just a maintenance and operations tool, but a decarbonization and energy management solution as well. So just last slide from me. I mean, if you guys found any of this interesting, any of the graphs, any of the insights, please do access our Verdantix Vantage page. It's a completely free platform that has access to all of our reports, all of our insights. There's surveys, there's market sizes, there's best practices, whatever you may need. Have a look at it. There's a lot more information than what I've just shared today, but otherwise, thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope it was of interest to you guys.